In this video, we're going to talk about how to find the distance between two ordered pairs. So if you notice in this picture down here, I have two ordered pairs. The first one is labeled x1, y1, and the other one is labeled x2, y2. And the question is, how do we find the distance between these 2 points? So if we draw a line segment from one to the other, what is the length of that line segment? Okay, well, we're going to derive a formula for this called the distance formula. And it says the distance d between any 2 points, x1, y1, and x2, y2, is given by d equals, and we're going to derive the formula here. Okay, so how do we find this distance between these 2 points? Well, what we're going to do is draw a triangle, okay, a right triangle, based on these 2 points, and we're going to use the Pythagorean Theorem. So the first question is, what is the length of this leg of the triangle? So remember, the Pythagorean Theorem says that a squared plus b squared equals c squared for a right triangle. Well, what are the a and the b? Okay, so notice that since this point is labeled x1, y1, the x-coordinate is x1 and the y-coordinate is y1. So we'll label these points along the x-axis and y-axis. And similarly, for the second point, we have x2 there and y2 here. So notice, what is the distance between x1 and x2? Well, the distance is just the difference between those. It's going to be x2 minus x1. For example, if x2 were 10 and x1 were 3, well, the distance from 3 to 10 is going to be 7, right? How did we find that? Well, we subtracted those 2 points. And same thing here along the vertical distance between the 2 points is going to be y2 minus y1. Now, this is the case if I've positioned the points the way I have them now. If the point, the second point, x2, y2, were to the left of x1, y1, we would be using x1 minus x2 instead of x2 minus x1. But that's not going to end up affecting the formula in the end. Okay, and this, the hypotenuse here is what we're calling d. So let's remember the Pythagorean Theorem says, of course, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, c squared equals a squared plus b squared. But the c in this case is what we're calling d, right? It's the distance between those 2 points. So we have d squared is equal to a squared, but notice that the a is the x2 minus x1. And then plus b squared, but the b is y2 minus y1. So d is equal to the square root of the right-hand side. So if d squared equals the right-hand side, d will equal the square root of the right-hand side. And this is the distance formula. Okay, so let's write it up here. The distance is the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. All right, well, let's use this formula now to find the distance between 2 points. So if you notice in this example here, I have 2 points, 2 comma negative 1 and 8 comma 3, and we want to find the distance between those 2 points. And we're going to first of all give an exact answer, and then we'll give an approximation to 3 decimal places. Okay, so how do we find the distance? Well, we could try to draw the right triangle again and use the Pythagorean Theorem, but let's use the formula that we derived. So we have to call one of these points x1, y1, and the other point x2, y2. And it actually doesn't matter which one you call x1, y1 and which one you call x2, y2. You're going to get the same answer either way. Okay, so the distance formula says the distance is equal to the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. But what are these numbers? Well, the x2 minus x1 is going to be 8 minus 2. Right? x2 is 8, x1 was 2. Plus y2 minus y1 squared, but that is 3 minus a negative 1. Okay, so notice this equals the square root of 6 squared plus, well, 3 minus a negative 1 is like 3 plus 1, so that would be 4. So we have the square root of 6 squared plus 4 squared. That's the square root of 36 plus 16, and that is the square root of 52. So the square root of 52, that is the distance between these 2 points. Okay, and that is the exact answer. Now, you could write this another way. Since 52 is really 4 times 13, this is the same thing as the square root of 4 times the square root of 13. Right? So square roots have this property that the square root of a times b is equal to the square root of a times the square root of b. And the square root of 4 is 2. So this is 2 times the square root of 13. So this would be another way to write your answer, but I'm okay if you just leave it as the square root of 52. Okay, but it also said get a decimal approximation. So I used a calculator to find the square root of 52, and I noticed that it is about 7.21110.0255, etc. Okay, it says round to 3 decimal places, so 3 decimal places are going to be the 2, 1, and 1. And notice that fourth spot here after the 3rd decimal place, that number there is 1, and that's less than 5, so we're going to round down. Okay, so we're going to write this as 7.211. Okay, that will be our rounding to 3 decimal places. If this last number here had been something other than 1, so it had been or something greater than or equal to 5, so it had been 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, then we would round this up to 7.212. Okay, so that's how you find the distance between 2 points.